So I am a sex tech and sexual wellness copywriter and email marketer. So I mostly focus on email marketing growth. So I started out like any other copywriter. I didn't really have much of a focus. I knew I liked wellness, fitness, and of course I like sex. And so that's kind of, I started thinking about, okay, what could I write about every day of my life and not feel, I guess, bogged down. And that's when I discovered sex tech and sexual wellness. I had kind of started out in sexual health and realized that I much preferred more of like the sexual pleasure, sex tech geared towards sexual pleasure. And so that's really where I ended up shifting my focus. And so I've worked with sex coaches, sex wellness, brands, companies. I'm currently working with like a couples relationship, erotica, intimacy subscription called Aria. And then I am also working with the Feel Collective. So that's a female sexual empowerment platform. And there's definitely a lot of big stuff coming out with that. But as far as my email agency goes, I'm mostly just work in sexual wellness and sexual pleasure. So I've been reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so it's kind of like the slight edge, but a little bit more casual. So that's kind of that, betterment, self-betterment, making sure I'm like doing everything I can do to like make the most out of my day, which is kind of boring. So yeah, Atomic Habits has been what I've been reading, and then I'm always a sucker for kind of smut novels. I read so much research all the time that sometimes when I want my brain to just check out, I go to an author I've been reading basically for like 20 years, and that's Nora Roberts. So I've been rereading some of her stuff, which isn't groundbreaking in any sort of way. But yeah, that's definitely, I like to kind of shut my brain off. As far as podcasts go, I love listening to sex psychology with Justin Lehmiller. I could listen to his voice all day. And on like kind of a lighter note, I'm a big Office fan, so I listen to the Office Ladies podcast. So I've been listening to that for the last couple of years. I try to, I don't know, keep my brain in all these different places so I don't get too burnt out on one topic. I'm like that way with music too. Like my shuffle is always just taking me all these different places. So I know this topic has kind of come under fire recently. I've been seeing it a lot more, but when I was, I don't know, 15, 16, of course I read Cosmo. That was like my groundbreaking, like sexual Bible. And they had an article about maintenance sex, and that was real, like that. Basically, my takeaway was that not every sexual encounter needs to be this groundbreaking, super sweaty, super intimate, super erotic experience. That sometimes just the act of staying connected through regular sexual experiences with your partner or yourself is the best way to just keep your sex life going. So it clicked with me, and I was probably like 17 or 18 when I read that, and it's just something that I've always resonated with, is the best way to kind of keep your sex life from having kind of a cold spell is just to do it. Now, of course, with consent and all of that, you should never push yourself into a situation that you don't want to be in. And then on a lighter note, I learned how to give a blowjob from these waitresses that I worked with when I was like 16. They like busted out the carrot, like a movie, and taught me how to give up during a break, which it was a different time back then. And so that was really good advice too on how to do that. Yeah, it's kind of funny now I think back, and now that I have a daughter, I'm like, holy crap, like, please don't ever do that. As a lot of us are aware, there are issues with ads, Meta and Google and all those different areas not willing to really give on sexuality, especially when it comes to females. And recently, the Center for Intimacy Justice just put in a suit against Meta for basically, bogging down the advertising. And because of that, I really switched my gears to email marketing, because emails, you're not tied to advertisements, you're not tied to social media. Social media is important, but you have to really keep it a lot more bland than you would want to with your brand. And so it's, of course it's important to bring it in as lead generation, but emails is where you're going to end up being able to kind of be your true self and really develop that relationship with your audience and talk more freely and openly about what you do. And so I would always recommend that these brands don't focus 100% on their social media platforms, but put a lot of effort into growing their own websites and growing their own email strategy, because ultimately at the end of the day, those are the only things that they really own and that they can have control over. And while there is censorship when it comes to subject lines, and you have to be aware of how you phrase different things to not end up in the junk mail, you can get away with a lot more in your emails than you could with social media and in advertising. I'm hoping that there's like a turn in the tide for sexual pleasure and sexual wellness marketing. Honestly, if there was just a turn in the tide for sexual health when it comes to painful sex, endometriosis, menopause, periods, if they could just get some rights when it comes to advertising, that would be a huge win. And I think that would really push pleasure and wellness into it. So yeah, that would be my advice, is to really put a lot of your marketing effort into your actual platforms that you can have ownership of. I tell clients or people that I talk to, you just try, because you never know what's going to work today, and what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. And you can kind of play with a little bit within reason and watch what you can get away with. Because if we continue to censor ourselves all the time and don't push the envelope, then we're not really working towards making any of this less taboo. I'm going to be talking about the benefits of email marketing and why it's so important for not just sex tech, sexual health, sexual wellness to have email marketing, but really why every business should have an email marketing strategy. And I will then go into a newsletter strategy on how to build basically the perfect newsletter for your brand. That's always a good place to start, and it's pretty easy once you build your own formula and get it going. So I'll talk about that and go into some basic automation segments that you can do with your email marketing. Very do it yourself, because I do recognize that startups and solo entrepreneurs don't always have the funds, or the means to really pay for a full email agency. But there's so much that you can do on your own that may take you a weekend to put it together, But once you get it going, it'll basically run itself. So I'll talk about the automation, segmentations, emails, benefit of emails, newsletters, and different platforms that you can use for your different email needs. First off, I love connecting with people in the field. Relationship building is really important to me. I had read early on in my freelance contractor life that if you're making less than 100K a year, you should just focus on relationship building. And so I've really taken that to heart. And I'm sure if anybody takes a peek at my LinkedIn, that's all I'm about, is let's just keep connecting. Let's have coffee, little cyber coffee chats. Let's go to virtual conferences and let's just meet each other. It is a very small space. And once you get in, you start meeting, everybody's connected in one way or another, and we can all help each other. There are things that I can't do that I know other copywriters or contractors can do. So if I have somebody reach out to me and it's not within my wheelhouse, or it just isn't really, it's not what I do, I want to be able to have somebody kind of in my Rolodex to pass that information along to keep building the community. I think in a couple years after the big gold rush of sex tech and sexual health and sexual wellness kind of levels out, and all the people, the brands, the founders that really put in the foundation for relationship building and community building are still around, that they're really going to need people in the space who not only feels like enthusiastic and feels like it's really important and understands the space, but then can also bring in those skill sets such as copywriting, emails, ads, web design, all of that.